Hello and welcome to Versus Live. I'm Ross Merriam.
I'm Corey Baumeister.
And we got Rob over there in the booth. Say hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Does it every time. Love it.
Don't forget he's got his shoes as well.
Yes, Rob's shoes are here. Not quite as ostentatious as last week, but still looking fresh. I like the yellow.
My alma mater colors of Jordan 1, so, you know.
Well, I like that you have. How many different pairs do you have? I mean, you wear a different one every day. It's impressive.
This is it.
Okay.
I got 7, I think.
All right. Not bad.
Impressive. As always, we are brought to you by Star City Games and Carnox Gaming Chairs. If you want one of these, you can go to carnox.com/SCG. And if you use that affiliate link, you will get 10% off. And you will be at least 10% more comfortable. At least.
Doesn't matter what you're sitting in. We promise you, you will be 10% more satisfied in everything in life.
Yes. Rob's going to be taking all of your questions, comments, concerns, and burns in the chat. Make sure you tag at SCG Tour so he can see them. Send his favorites over to us.
Yes.
Okay, we have been playing a lot of Throne of Eldraine in Standard the last few
great.
weeks.
It was so nice. I just loved it.
But we've got a Team Constructed Open coming up this weekend.
Yes.
And that means more than just Standard. It means we got to get into a little bit of Modern, where Throne of Eldraine is making an impact.
It really is.
You know, we've seen a little bit of it online. There was a Modern Challenge last weekend, and we're playing a lot of decks from that tournament, as well as a nice little spicy one for you at the end that came from the most recent deck dump on MTGO. And, you know, I think the card that is getting the most hype is in your first deck. That is Emery, Lurker of the Lock. You know, really powerful with cheap artifacts, which Modern is in abundance with.
Kind of chock full of, yeah.
Yes.
Mox Opal and Emery are destined to be besties.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've been singing the praises of Urza and Paradoxical Outcome for a little while now. Emery slots very nicely into that deck, and that's what you'll be leading off with.
Yeah, honestly, Emery really adds a different element to Urza that it didn't really have before. A little bit of a constant engine to keep going, which is something we don't see. And we actually have another Throne of Eldraine card. We have Witch as well. Being able to scry, fix your mana a little bit, fix your draws. One popular way that I lose is just by not having the mana to either cast a turn 3 Urza, Lord High Artificer, or a turn 4, you know, doing it on curve whenever I get stuck on that. Those are usually the games I fall a little bit too far behind. So I think Witching Well might do that, as well as in the matchups, especially like the one we're going to see now against a Jund Shadow deck, where your opponent rips apart your hand pretty often. Having something sit in play that you can go end step, draw a couple cards, and then the next turn start with 3 fresh cards is going to be pretty important, I think.
Yeah, no, I've been playing with Emery decks all week, basically.
Yeah.
Witching Well has really impressed me. I think
in Standard, right?
I'm in the Modern side.
I think we've both given up on Emery in Standard. Yes. I think both times we tried it, we're just bad.
It is significantly better in Modern. Let me tell you.
Okay.
You know, Witching Well definitely puts in some work. You know, you sort of compare it to Chromatic Star. That's kind of the slot it's taking. And Scry 1 versus Cantrip, or Scry 2 versus a Cantrip, is not that much different. The Cantrip, I think, is a little bit better.
Yeah.
But not by a ton. Scry 2 is a pretty nice effect, especially on turn 1 when you're setting up your draws, as you said. But then that late game, you don't expect it to come up in Modern. But right now, Modern is really fair.
Yeah.
You know, the results of that challenge last weekend were 5 fair decks. This Emery Outcome deck, which is like can play a fair game. It's not like super linear. Burn and Tron. You know, Burn and Tron are omnipresent. But the other 6 decks, we had, you know, Jund Shadow, which is the list I'll be playing. We had regular Jund. We had Azorius Stoneblade. We had regular Azorius Control taking the entire thing down. So people are playing really fair in Modern right now. A lot of the powerful cards from Modern Horizons, after Hogak was banned, push you in that direction. Things like Wrenn and 6 and Force Mitigation. So the format is really interactive, and Witching Well plays really well in those matchups. So
yeah. And one nice thing you can do with Witching Well, I mean, especially in a fair metagame, the card gets even better. But one thing you can do with Witching Well that is maybe not super intuitive is being able to bring it back with Paradoxical Outcome. Let's say you're doing this kind of for like 2 or 3, kind of a value Paradoxical Outcome, and then playing Witching Well and then having like an Astrolabe. You get to scry 2 cards that are not great to the bottom and then Astrolabe and immediately draw something that's relevant. So when you're kind of comboing off, but you don't have that like slam dunk, Saheeli, Sai, Paradoxical Outcome, 4-0 drop things where you just obviously win, where you have to kind of work for it. And I mean, having to work for it is going to happen a lot more against these 8 Thoughtseize decks, because it's just impossible to have a critical mass of artifacts to be able to just easily slam dunk. But which as well will help you find a key second paradoxical outcome or that key psi, something like that.
And in that scenario, it's significantly better than a cantrip.
Exactly.
Scry 2 draws these 3 cards. Draw 2 is just taking 2 cards.
Well, because even in that scenario where you're outcoming a star, it's not even cantripping, right? Like it's just a 1 mana tap for 1, so it's just a 0 mana Mox Opal essentially, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like we said, I'm going to be playing Jund's Shadow. It's not as big of an impact from Throne of Eldraine in this deck, but an interesting one that I wouldn't have really put together immediately. And when I saw it, I was really impressed. So, this is Jund's Shadow, so we're playing Traverse the Ulvenwald.
Yep.
And that goes really well with Adventures. It lets you essentially traverse for a spell.
Yeah.
So we've got singleton copies of Bone Crusher Giant and Murderous Rider in the main deck, and got a copy of Embereth Shieldbreaker in the sideboard, in case you want to blow up some artifacts. Maybe an Ensnaring Bridge, a Thopter Foundry, something along those lines.
Now get Once Upon a Time in there, and we're really getting flavorful.
I've heard some rumors of that. We are not playing Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
The big instance are, the removal spells, and I've got some copies of Manamorphose to help out and get Delirium. And this is pretty standard Jund Shadow. It sort of reemerged. I know Matt Nass played it in the Team Modern Grand Prix. His team did not do that well, but apparently he was 6-0 when they were eliminated from the tournament. So
that's frustrating.
Yeah, so he was doing good work with the deck, and this is a deck that matches up pretty well in a fair metagame. Has just really efficient, powerful threats, good removal, and like you said, 8 discard spells. So it should match up well here. Hopefully I can tear your hand apart, put some pressure on, and close the game out before you're able to, set up that paradoxical outcome on my end step for like 3 cards, untap and explode.
And go off, yeah. One thing, speaking on the Team Modern thing, one thing Matt Nass's team did wrong in that tournament, I heard there was a team that just played 3 Urza decks, just played the best deck. And you know what? I heard they got a little unlucky to not make the top 8, but that's the team that really had the great ideas.
Yes.
It was me.
Just wonder who that might be. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna start this off. I do have the marbles. You got a little unlucky on Tuesday, kind of repeatedly. I was drawing exactly what I need off the top. I was tutoring every turn, and I was also tutoring for your deck to put a land on top. So it was.
Well, I am the one with tutors in this matchup with Traverse Wall. So,
all right, so you're going to be starting.
Yes, and this hand looks to be quite solid.
So yeah, we got some. If we look at my hand, we got some new toys here. We have a good mix of early artifacts, a couple lands. This is pretty ideal.
Okay, we are going to start with a bauble. I'm going to bauble myself.
Okay. And
that is exactly what we want. So let's cycle a Street Wraith and get it in our hand.
I love both of our decks are probably the 2 best bauble decks, Death Shadow and Urza, just being able to manipulate your draws so perfectly.
Okay, let's crack that fetch and get an Overgrown Tomb and then Thoughtseize You.
Okay, so you're going to 13.
Yeah.
All right, I think I probably know the pick here.
Actually, I have 4 Nurturing Peatlands in this deck. I should probably just get a Blood Crypt.
Okay, sure. So you got a choice between a bunch of 0-mana artifacts, Witching Well, and Emery, which would come down on turn 1.
You are right. The Emery would come down on turn 1. So I think that is going to have to be the take.
Okay.
I do not have an answer for it on turn 2, so it is certainly going to draw a
card. I was just going to say, if Ross left Emery in my hand, I would have a very clear assumption that it is not going to live.
Yeah. Pass the turn.
All right. So I'm going to start. That was a pretty decent draw. Now, I could do a little manipulating to
Classic
myself.
Turn 1 Delirium.
Impressive.
4 for 4.
Okay, so I don't really want to do anything with Bauble yet. I'm just going to sack because I'm going to do some scrying with this Witching Well. All right, we'll get the Snow Island, and we'll see about Everflowing Chalice. I'm almost for sure not going to cast it because I'm going to want to use it next turn. So we're going to scry 2. So I do need this. I do need this card right here to be able to play all my spells. This one is pretty solid as well. All right, we're going to keep both. And now the question is, how much do I want to play to avoid other hand disruption? And I think basically just all of them. They're safer on the battlefield than they are in my hand.
Yep.
So I'll pass to you.
Okay, not the best draw there. So let's crack for an overgrown tomb, go to 10.
Okay.
And play a Tarmogoyf.
Goyf, okay.
So I have 4, and I don't think you're adding anything. Yeah, we're missing instant.
I don't think so. So now we have to remember what we put on top here. Here's a refresh. And if I want to sack a Flooded Strand next turn, the only way for me to get this card is to activate Mishra's Bauble right now. And with what Ross played here, I think I do want it. So we are going to bobble you.
Sure.
I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I draw 2. Now I draw this card, and I can sack Flooded Strand, go down to 18.
So now all I know from your hand is the Chalice.
The Everflowing Chalice, yep.
This is the top card of my deck.
Nice.
Ross, did you forget to draw from your bauble?
Oh, just draw your next turn.
Yeah.
Or Judge's ruling. What do we think? All right. I'm going to Everflowing Chalice. And then I think we'll just pass it back to you.
Okay, let's put this bobble trigger on the stack. Well, that was heinous.
That was heinous.
So let's cycle this Street Wraith.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to 8.
8.
And I'm just going to K command, blow up the Chalice, have you discard.
Okay, that's pretty strong.
I want to stop an Urza next turn for sure, or an outcome.
Okay, so and now what to
This will also
discard?
add an instant.
Sure. I think I just have to. Oh, that's bad. It's really bad because I feel like I really need this here, but at the same time, I just don't have the time. That's pretty tough. I think it has to be. It might just be this. It does not feel great, of course, but that's what we're going to do. Okay.
Let's get in for 5.
Down to 13.
Pass the turn.
All right. Well, that's unfortunate draw for that. E for 2.
Yep.
Your turn.
Tannen would like us to institute 5 push-ups every time someone misses something like a trigger on a bauble.
I like it. I like it. That'll KO me for the show, so I can't do that.
8 all.
Okay.
You're up.
All right. All right, we got no play. We'll pass to you.
Attack.
I will blow it up.
Pass.
You might be flooding, huh?
Don't think there's a mite in there.
Well, we are doing the opposite, so we did kind of do this to ourselves, discarding a land, but we'll pass it to you.
Inquisition you.
Okay. You get a mox.
And pass the turn.
All right, so we can't cast anything for a while. Go. Could use some land.
That is a good one.
Ruh-roh.
Cast reverse.
Yep. Do you have Delirium?
I had it on turn 1.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any point in getting anything other than a Death Shadow, so
Yeah, probably
let's do
not.
that.
And I'm a little punished for EEing in the blind on 2, but even just EEing for 1 or just holding it, I would have lost it to Inquisition, so I figured I just want to get it on the battlefield.
Yeah.
But maybe in general, whatever I EE'd for, you probably just go search for the other creature, either a Goyf or Death Shadow. So
Yeah. Pass
All
turn.
And you are at...
We're both at 8.
Okay, and you can sack yourself.
Can make it an 8. So
Yeah, that's going to do it. All I had is Saheeli. I needed a couple more turns here. In hindsight, I really wish I would have discarded Lord High Artificer for this land instead and kept the EE. But yeah, this won't do.
no, it will not. Okay. A little worried there as I was flooding, but
Yeah,
fortunately
I was not doing anything.
stuck on land
Yeah.
over there.
All right, what do you think? You want to do a couple game ones or?
I think we can just get to sideboarding. Okay. I think some of these games are going to go long, so
That's true. That's true.
at least that's my experience with the outcome deck. So-
Okay, perfect. Well, we're just going to take a quick short break, and we will get sideboarding here for round 1 with blue-white Urza outcome versus John Shadow. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome back here to Sideboarding at Versus Live. So I am going to be taking out Emery, even though I know it's our new card, which is kind of a bummer to take out the new spice. But unfortunately, Emery does not line up very well against Culligan's Command. And just the fact that you have a lot of cheap, efficient removal to deal with it. If I'm playing a card that isn't an artifact that I'm not gaining value off of and it just dies right away, then I'm losing too many resources by just casting the card. So I'm a little timid to keep this card in, as well as taking out everybody's favorite promo card here, Nexus of Fate. I just don't really need that I need to win immediately card that Nexus is. Once you're looping, you just draw your deck, play Nexus, and then attack. I just don't need that. I can just amass so many tokens that when you untap, you're just like, okay, I could never win. You have Plague Engineer for the Thopters, but then I have, the servos. Because I'll just have everything at that point. So it doesn't really pay to have this card. What it does pay, though, is bringing in some ways to interact besides Engineered Explosive with your big creatures. So now that you don't have Stubborn Denial, Path to Exile is just even better, and it's already good against Grixis Shadow. Teferi, on the other hand, is much better against Grixis Shadow because not only does it bounce like something like an Angler, like if you ever bounce an early Angler, it's just like, oh, your opponent picks up their cards, they head home from the tournament. They may be 2-0. They're still heading home. The game is over. They have to let their mom know that they're disappointed her. It's bad.
It's a demoralization campaign.
It really is a demoralization campaign. Thank you. That's perfect. But against this matchup, it's a lot worse because you do have cheap, effective creatures that you can just play back next turn as well as a way to interact. Plus, you just play more creatures, so it's not as good, and it doesn't stop an important card in the hands of Stubborn Denials.
But it is going to buy you a lot of time still.
Yeah.
It's going to help compensate for the loss of Emery as an enabler for Moxamber.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can bounce a Collector Oof and turn on your mana for a turn, and that's all you really need, maybe to cast the Urza, something like that. And sometimes you just get to bounce your own like Astrolabe and turn it into just a divination when you need to get ahead on cards. So it still has a lot of utility in this matchup. I like bringing them in here. On my side, the Collector Oof is an obvious one. Urza goes a long way towards making Collector Oof bad, but if you get it down early, you can stymie their mana. And you saw Corey stumble on mana there in that first game. Oof can do that as well. Plague Engineer is a little awkward because you have both Sai and Saheeli. That's one of the reasons that the deck has the split.
Yeah,
but should still be good. It's easy usually for me to deal with one of them, and then Plague Engineer will deal with the other one.
Yeah,
and because I have things like Assassin's Trophy, so I'm bringing in the second copy there. Plenty of Planeswalkers, a clean answer to sort of clean answer to Urza. You still get a land and a construct around.
There's no clean answers to Urza.
We'll do what we can. Bringing out the Bone Crusher Giant, all it does is kill Emery, so not a particularly efficient card here. I'm actually cutting some Inquisitions. I expected this matchup to go pretty long, and we saw near the end of game one, I drew an Inquisition and just took like a Mox Amber that wasn't really good. I just don't want to be drawing into too many discard spells. I want one or two early, and then that's that. So
Thoughtseizes is your better hand disruption spell by a lot. And luck, it punches you in the face a couple times. So that's nice. Yeah.
And then we're trimming one Fatal Push, but not a ton of creatures in your deck. The creatures that you do have are important to kill, namely Urza, and the Construct is often important to kill.
Yep.
And so push deals with both of those. So trimming down on some of the disruption that might match up poorly. I don't want to flood on bringing in some disruption that should match up well against the go wide strategy is usually the thing that this deck has some trouble dealing with.
Agreed.
Battle Rage can go over the top of it, but that's about it. If you start making a bunch of tokens every turn, you're usually going to be able to chump block away every attack I make.
100%. And I think you said something perfect here. A good thing that Urza has done to adapt that people need to realize is all the traditional hate that's been good against these artifact decks, Collector Oof, Stony Silence, even Plague Engineers and stuff like that. It's just not good enough anymore these days, and that's why this deck is becoming so good, is because the deck is attacking at so many different angles where the hate cards aren't just game over like they used to be in different artifact-based decks, like Affinity or Hardened Scales. Like if you put Stony down, the game's over.
Yeah.
But with Urza and with Outcome now, changing the dynamics of it really makes the deck pretty resilient, and that's what makes this deck, in my opinion, the best deck in Modern. But Modern is so diverse, and it is such a it's just such a good format because it's self-correcting. Whenever one deck becomes too good, the next week, there's hate cards out there for every deck. The hate cards will put a deck in its place. So
yep. And then we've sort of noticed that you have to kind of interact with this deck in traditional means and then clock them.
Yeah.
Because the one downside, I think, of the outcome version versus, maybe 4-color Urza that we've seen with Goblin Engineer at the Doppler Foundry is you don't have as many of the fast draws.
Yeah.
Now, the Ascendancy versions can sometimes have those fast draws with Emery.
And I haven't played those yet, so I can't speak to that yet.
So that's a nice benefit there. But
Yeah.
right now, this version is the slowest, but it's also just so resilient.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Well, while we're shuffling up and getting our hands ready, Rob, you got any questions?
Yeah, so hitting on that, Cooligan wanted to know what do you think about the Jeskai Ascendancy version? Like, what is it that makes it so much faster?
Well, I mean, it's so easy to assemble Emery Ascendancy. Like, it's basically a 2-card combo. And then if you have Bauble or any 0-mana artifact that sacrifices itself, you just continuously untap the Emery, target that 0 every time, and you loot through your deck. Then eventually you find either 2 Mox Opals or 2 Mox Ambers, and then you start looping those, generating a mana each time, and then you can loop Pyrite Spellbomb to kill them outside of combat, or make some gigantic battlefield things. Your Emery keeps getting bigger every time. That can attack as well. So and you
just to infinite bobble triggers. Hope you don't forget that. No,
you're also not required to loot with the Ascendancy trigger, so you can just go through your deck and then stop doing that, but still get the untaps. So you actually do get to go boundless there. So that combo is pretty easy to do, and with Mox Opal, you can do it on turn 2.
Yeah,
but it's pretty easy to do by turn 3 as well. And Ascendancy also just plays really well with Sai and Saheeli and with Urza. Especially if you have both, because then you start making tokens. They tap for blue, then you cast another spell, then they all untap. Then you keep floating more and more blue. Then you start activating the Urza because you have so much extra mana that gets you more spells. Then you loot.
It seems pretty busted, and it's so easy to do with Astrolabe. Like, you can just easily play a red card in there.
The only awkward part is that it's just another non-artifact, and fitting everything is it can be difficult.
Yeah, even this list, like playing Emery in this, it feels like it might be too many non-artifacts. Like I feel like I don't get enough just smooth artifact draws that take over the game.
Yeah,
and you got it's a tough dance to go back and forth with that.
Yeah, so that people are working on it right now. I've seen some people tweet out lists. I've been playing some lists myself. I think I like having the ability to be resilient and the ability to be fast. It's just a question of how to get everything working together and still have that mana acceleration engine from the artifacts. And so you need this critical mass of cheap artifacts. You need all your lands to work and have the right color requirements. And then you need all of the good enablers in the right numbers. So like I've seen lists with 2 Ascendancy. I've seen lists with 4 Ascendancy. How many do you play? How many Mox Ambers do you play now? Because that's really good with the Ascendancy plan, not as good with the outcome plan, that you do have enough things to generally turn it on.
Yeah.
So getting all those numbers right is going to be tough. It's a tough dance, but if you do, I think the payoff is there because it does compensate you for the one issue that this deck has, which is a little bit of a lack of speed.
Yeah.
And, when I played the straight outcome list, I struggled against some of the really fast linear decks, the Burns, the Neo Brands, weird decks like that.
Everybody struggles with that deck because it can end the game before you do anything.
I played a game where I had Needle in my opening hand. They just turned 1-B on the play.
So I'm out of here.
I think the payoff is there because I think you get compensated in the right way, but it's a lot of different things to get working together. And I've definitely had some with the all-in like Ascendancy plus outcome versions. I've mulliganed a lot more than with the other version.
Makes sense.
The consistency goes down.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, let's fire this second game up here. I'm going to be on the play. Ugh, this is gross. This is gross. I mean, if we take a look at my hand, this is just far too many lands. We don't have enough to do here. I'm just going to mulligan this one. You don't want to mulligan against a 6 Thoughtseize deck, but I think that hand is just too bad. 1 Thoughtseize kind of just wrecks me.
This is a weird hand to evaluate because I have multiple Manamorphoses, so I'm just not sure what this hand is going to be.
Yeah, the Death Shadows list really can be anything. They have, Street Race and Manamorphose. You just spin the dice,
If one of these Morphoses was a Bauble, or if we had a discard spell, this hand would be, I think, an easy keep. I think with the London Mulligan, I'm supposed to send this away.
To ship it back.
I think I can do better.
So if we take a look at my hand now, I think this is better. It's still not great, but I'm going to just get rid of this. And then let's take one more question.
All right. Hysteus, one of our favorite questions.
Long-time listener.
Yeah.
Long-time caller as well.
To know,
Yes.
Is it possible to go bigger than Golos in Standard, or is that basically it?
You know, I mean, going bigger is contextual to what everybody thinks, you know? I mean, bigger could be like Martin Juza's Jeskai Fire list where you're playing 8 Cavaliers and you're, you know, drawing a ton of cards and you're sacking a Cavalier and dealing 18 to the face. But as far as just generally creating bigger things, I don't think so. Because Golos ramping yourself into just outrageous crazy. Activating Golos is just an insanely over-the-top ability. Right now, I think Golos is going the biggest, and that's why it's, I don't know, maybe the most successful
Take a card
deck right now.
I drew 8.
Okay. But no, I really don't think you can right now, Hasteus. Good question, though.
Okay. Second hand here, and this hand looks quite solid. We can definitely afford to put a land on the bottom, so that's what we'll do. And we're off.
All right. Well, we're going to go with a bobble, and we're going to EE for 1. I'm going to try to shut down Death Shadow here, and then we'll pass it to you.
Okay. I will bobble myself.
Okay.
That is a card I want, so let's cycle Street Wraith and draw it. So I'm at 18.
18.
And then I will play a Verdant Catacombs, pass the turn, trigger my bobble.
Nice, you did it. And now I have a question if I want to do my bobble here at end step to try to find some action. I think I will. We'll target you.
Oh, so you before I draw off mine?
Yeah, yep.
So this is the card I
Okay, gotcha. Since our hand doesn't have a ton of action here, we would rather get something. All right. Well, we'll play Vista and pass it to you.
Corey, in a deck like this that wants to normally replay its 0-mana artifacts, how do you balance when to crack your baubles, when to keep them?
Usually, if I have a play next turn, I want to keep the bauble. But if I don't have any action to play specifically the next turn, I want to try to find something. Because there's so many artifacts that replace themselves that if I like draw an Astrolabe off the bauble or something, that's great. You know, if I were to get flooded and stuff, that's kind of the worst possible. But then I'm going to get flooded anyways. So you kind of just lose those games anyways. So,
Okay.
if I need a high metalcraft count, then I don't touch them. But yeah.
I'm going to crack my fetch and shock with an Overconsume, then play a Stomp Ground untapped. So that's going to leave me at 13.
Okay.
And I'll play a Tarmogoyf that is a 3/4.
All right. And then I'm going to sack this.
So 13 to 19.
Thin out a little bit.
Getting the planes. Are we pathing on end step?
We might be. We're not on end step, but we're just getting it to thin the deck. Make sure we have white covered. All right, we'll untap. All right, not the best draw either. We'll play a land and say go.
Okay, I will play a Manamorphose.
Okay.
I will make black-green.
Okay.
That'll get this to a 4/5. I will Thoughtseize You, green floating.
All right. Our hand is terrible.
So I'm at 11 now.
Okay.
So you have 2 lands and an outcome.
Yep.
And I have nothing else to do, so I'm just going to play a Peatland, use the green to sack it.
Okay.
And we drew a bauble, so that's cool.
All right.
And now, so we got sorcery in there too, so this is a 5/6.
Okay, makes sense.
Land, instant, creature, artifact, sorcery. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take a total of 6 because I sacked the Vista.
Attack brings you to 14, Vista fetch brings you to 13.
13 to 11. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Done?
Yeah.
All right.
Do we draw a 0?
No, a 0 is definitely exactly what we wanted. We did not, but I will say go. Now we have the option to outcome and return EE, and then we can possibly max out EE.
Yeah, on your end step, let's bauble you. That's a good one. Let's draw a bauble.
Okay.
Draw for turn.
Nailed it.
Play a Mire, attack for a 5.
All right. I think we will actually path that. We drew a path, so dealing with the creature here I think is going to be quite important.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing we can do about that.
Okay.
We did draw a good one ourselves.
How dare you?
Can't
How
be
dare you,
that
Ross?
upset. Let me find a
How are you going to reach your final form of being Lost Miriam with all this winning you're doing here?
I'm at 11. I got to manage my life total a little bit at this point, so I think I'm going to find the forest and then crack for the swamp.
Okay, so you're at 10.
We actually drew a K command, and while you can't outcome, we might as well cast that one. And the question is if I want to bring back Street Wraith and draw a card myself, or make Corey discard the land in his hand, because there's no way he's discarding that outcome.
You don't know me.
And I know what card...
K command is just so good.
I know what card he's drawing.
All right, where are we going?
So I think I want to just rebuy the Street Wraith.
And destroy this?
Yes.
Okay. I'll sacrifice it.
Sure. Pass the turn.
All right, what am I getting, Ross?
You're getting another engineered explosives.
That's not the worst. Not the best. Now the question is, do I want a PO for 1? That just feels so bad.
Cycle your outcome.
Yeah. I almost am just priced in. Ugh. Yeah, it is unfortunate, but I think that's what I should do. All right, maybe not. We will go with this for 1, and then do this and say go.
Outcome. Yeah, there's no reason to do it immediately.
Exactly.
Okay, let's cycle the Street Wraith and go to 8.
Okay.
Let's cycle this one and go to 6.
All right. We're winning by a lot.
Let's play a Peatland and pop that.
And that is sometimes the problem of Death Shadow. Is just sometimes you don't find enough threats, and you just find the stuff that helps you out here.
Let's play a Plague Engineer.
Okay.
And I will name... it's either going to be Thopter or Servo. I'm trying to look... I think I'm going to name Thopter.
Thopter. Okay.
And so I'm at 6, and then I will pass the turn.
I think we're going to do it. It feels real bad, but what can you do? So draw 1, untap. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. All right. EE for 2.
Yep.
And then your turn.
Thoughtseize you.
Thoughtseize, huh? All right, PO for 1.
Take the engineered explosives.
All right.
I go to 4. Play a Death Shadow. Check you for 2.
11.
Play this tapped and pass the turn.
Well, this deck is not looking great so far today, that's for sure. All right, so that is 11. It's lethal. I got nothing.
Yeah, so far, one thing is you didn't draw an Urza that game.
Yeah.
Which is pretty big. I did not have an answer for 1.
Or ever.
You drew one in game 1, but just couldn't cast it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But so far, even though I haven't been able to close the game out super quickly.
Yeah.
I had Death Shadow in my opening hand, but you played the early Engineered Explosives on 1, which is great. And that just sort of stalled out, but you were never able to get anything going.
No.
Because you just didn't have enough artifacts to make the outcome good.
Exactly. And I mean, that's not, my draws were pretty awkward, but that's not to take away from you disrupting me at least 4 times.
Yeah.
A couple of hand disruption spells.
I destroyed an Engineered Explosives. You had to pop a bobble to get things going.
Exactly.
What you really could have used there are things like Witching Well and Astrolabe. Things that have an effect to fix your draws, but also stick around.
Exactly. And something where I could have drawn a card off the Astrolabe and then drawn a card bringing back from PO and then drawing another thing.
Yeah.
I really needed something like that. You're 100% right. So
yeah, Astrolabe.
Yeah.
Maybe I was supposed to actually make you discard just so you wouldn't have a 5th land, so you couldn't draw Astrolabe and outcome.
Yeah.
I didn't think I didn't go that deep in my thought process, but that.
And that's the problem with I could have held back PO and tried to not do anything and hope to draw artifacts, but the problem is you're attacking this deck in the perfect way. Disruption and fast clock. So when you were getting, Death Shadow and Tarmogoyfs and stuff down, it's like, I don't have the luxury of sitting around and waiting until my PO can hit 3 cards or 4 cards, I just kind of had to go, so.
Definitely.
All right, so we'll shuffle up for a game 3 here. I'm getting work 2-0. All right, I'll be on the play. We'll see if we can change this a little bit. Ugh. This hand is quite bad. Why can't I draw Astrolabes? Astrolabes hold this deck together. It's the glue.
Card is not okay.
Yeah, I just can't keep this. I have way too many. I have 5 non-artifacts, and that's just not great.
I have a 4-lander and a Traverse that I couldn't get Delirium for, so...
So you have a 5-lander.
Yeah, I'll send mine back as well. Got any questions over there, Rob, while we wait?
Question. So, Corey, you mentioned that this Urza deck plays around hate fairly well.
Yeah.
Do you all think that Deafening Silence from Throne of Eldraine, the new rule of law for 1 mana, will have some kind of impact, or is it possibly a good sideboard card in addition to other cards?
That seems good to me. I mean, that's a piece of hate that like actually worked. You know, I mean, sure, you can Teferi bounce that, and you can EE it. You know, EE, being able to EE for 1 is a big deal, but no, I like that. That seems to attack this deck in a better way than I think maybe the Collector Ooh for...
Yeah, forcing an EE for 1 is also kind of nice because it'll blow up Witching Wells or Astrolabes that they played early on.
Exactly.
So I could definitely see a card like that.
Yeah, that seems sweet. All right. You got one more queued up there, Rob?
Unfortunately, I do not.
All right. Well, get your questions in if you want them answered here on the show. If not, we will just play some Magic.
Let's do it. Both on 6 cards.
I'm going to keep this. Now, as far as what I want to put on bottom, I think it's just this. It's either this. So it's either this Mox Amber or this Snow-Covered Island here. If we look at my hand, I think just a 2-lander here is fine because we do have other ways to manipulate our draws to be able to hit our land drops. So I think the land here is fine.
Okay. And my hand had no lands, so we'll be sending it back and taking a nice 5-er.
Nice.
I do have another question.
All right, what do you got?
So what is it that you think makes Jund Shadow the best version of Shadow right now? Is it just going from an angle at the moment?
I wouldn't say we even said that it's the best version of Shadow now at the moment, but it's different, right? Like Grixis Death Shadow, I think, is just a fundamentally flawed deck. I think that half the times you have to keep certain hands because they're just good. They have hand disruption. You have ways to get your life total low, but then if you don't have a threat in your top 20 cards, you're just dead. You know, so I do think that deck is just hard to consider being a tier 1 deck just because of that problem where 20% of the games you just don't find a threat, you do nothing, you die, you know, and you're helping your opponent kill you very quickly. This deck, on the other hand, is more of a well-oiled machine where the ceiling may be lower on Jund Shadow, but the floor is higher. So it's kind of that middle ground where Grixis Death Shadow, when it feels great and you draw 2 threats and the rest is disruption, it's insane. It's way up here. But I think you want more middle ground in a modern where we're playing a little bit more fair.
Yeah. I do think that the requirement of Stubborn Denial has gone down because the format is a little bit fairer.
Yep.
And that helps the Jund version of the deck. There's also something to be said for Teferi matching up against Gurmag Angler. Yeah.
Oh, that too, yeah. I mean, Teferi is starting to see a lot of play again, and yeah.
So I definitely want to put this one back. I can't keep both 3-mana spells in my hand when I'm a little bit land light, but I do think I will hit lands, and if I need a third, I have Traverse for it, which can also be a threat. And I think this card, it just doesn't do a whole lot right here, and it doesn't do a whole lot early in this matchup, so even though it's a cheap spell, it's actually not really like a good early game spell. So I think that's the other one I should send back.
Sounds great, brother. I'm going to Vista for the island I put on bottom.
Perfect.
And I'm going to do...
Should have just not shuffled.
I know. I should have. My inner competitive player was screaming at me, though, to play by the rules.
We got the Astrolabe.
All right.
We got the Astrolabe this time.
Your turn.
So I'm going to bobble you.
Okay.
That'll give us a little bit of information. So when we thought he's here,
yep. Okay.
we know what you're drawing. So I'm going to end up at 16 after this. And I am just going to take far and away the most powerful card. So let's get that Urza out of there.
Oh, I just drawed off Astrolabe, too. Not cool.
Yeah, let's just leave that up.
Sure, you got it.
Pass the turn, draw off my bauble on your upkeep, and you can draw your island.
All right, not bad. All right, so now we are going to go with Witching Well, do some scrying here.
Did you not want to fetch first?
I don't think so. With having another island, it just doesn't matter, really.
Well, if you scry both to the top, you can't play Saheeli without shuffling away the one the second card down.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I probably should have done that.
I've played enough with Serum Visions in Modern to know, like, you fetch first.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, because I do kind of want both of these.
Yeah. I've probably cast about, in the last year and a half, I've probably cast about 500 Serum Visions.
That is fair. Okay, so we're just going to go like this and pass it to you.
Okay, both on top is a Scary Prospect. And how do I want to play this? I think I just pass the turn.
Just passing. Okay. Interesting.
This is why you should play Grixis, right? So you can thought scour them in this particular situation.
Yeah, no, this would be great. All right, the top card is not insanely good or anything. It's more just a cantrip. So we're going to shuffle it away because I'd much rather get a card into play here.
Yeah. I was playing a straight Ascendancy deck earlier this week, and I scryed both to the top, and my dredge opponent went turn 1 Shriekhorn, target you.
Yeah.
Shriekhorn activation.
I like that.
They milled over a Fate Stitcher and did not win.
All right, I'll play Saheeli. Then I'll go with the Mox Amber trigger.
So that'll get you a servo.
Okay.
And now that Mox Amber makes mana.
It does. And then I'll pass to you.
Oh, nothing else to go with it.
Nothing else to go with it.
That means your other card has got to be good. Did you just get another Urza? It's got to be Urza or PO, I would say, because if it was an Astrolabe, you could cast that by making snow mana.
Yep.
Filtering the Amber into the Astrolabe on board. All your artifacts you can cast. I guess it could be a Path Exile. That's the other option. But between 3 paths and 7 4-drops. That said, I don't think we can allow this to stick around. So yeah, let's just trophy this on end step. I'm going to take one. Go to 15.
You go to 15. Yeah. I am at 18.
Yeah, this game does not feel good. I haven't gotten any pressure down. Corey's already established a good amount of artifacts, so all of his big spells are really good draws.
I'm actually casting some artifacts in my artifact deck this time. That is a little bit better.
Okay. Let's bauble myself.
Okay. Now there's a couple things we're really afraid of here, but more than likely with Witching Well being able to draw some cards, we're content playing it slow here, letting you disrupt as long as you don't get a monster threat down to clock me.
Don't think that one's good enough, and I also really want to do this.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to 14.
14, okay. Yeah. And just play a Death Shadow, right?
Actually, I'm getting I have to get a land.
You have to get a basic land. Yeah. No Delirium.
The awkward part was so I checked the top, and if I had a fetch land, I was going to sack the peat land, or basically any land.
Okay.
And then that would be Delirium, but then I'd have a land to play, especially a green source, and I would just tapped out for a Traverse for a threat. But now we'll just get a Forest.
And you got a Bobble Trigger coming next turn, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've got nothing else to do, but on your upkeep, I'll be drawing a card.
Okay. We'll untap.
Kind of suspect we're seeing a second Urza. I don't know. I just have the feeling.
That's sneaking suspicion.
Yep.
All right. We're going to attack.
13.
All right. And then we're going to play a Sigh.
Okay.
And we'll pass it to you. Sigh's pretty good here. I have the option to sack some artifacts, draw a card. Okay.
That's awkward. That is very awkward.
Yeah.
I guess not. Actually, Street Wraith is good because that's a...
That's Delirium for you?
Yeah. So let's Traverse for an actual threat.
Okay.
Since now we have creature, artifact, sorcery, instant.
For a Grizzly Bear Death Shadow?
I think that is what we will get. So let's get the Shadow. I'm actually going to... I guess there's no need. I can tap this for a mana
at any time. Yep.
So we'll just play it and leave the option open.
Okay.
And pass the turn.
All right. End step. I am going to sack these 2 artifacts. Draw a card.
Yep.
All right. Well, untap. Draw. Okay. Mox Opal, trigger.
So now we're getting Thopters.
Now we're getting Thopters. Nick Miller's getting that camera time. And I can't really do much here, so I think I will just pass it to you. I don't want to sack artifacts now.
I'm going to go to 10.
I don't want to use all my resources.
I definitely want to make this a 3/3 because then on my turn I can threaten to make it a 4/4.
Okay.
So the Psy can't block. So yeah, let's attack.
I'll block.
Add a black.
Okay.
I'm a 9.
You got a 9, 4 damage, path. So the reason I did that is just to make Ross, I knew I was going to path regardless, but to make Ross use his mana during his combat, that might mess him up, not thinking that I would block. Yeah. Give your opponent take away any resources you can when it comes to Modern or just Magic in general.
Okay, we're getting the swamp. I'll do that, but I'm going to use this mana. I definitely want to cast this.
Okay.
Fortunately, can't return the shadow. So I think I will be destroying the Witching Well, since that's the most valuable permanent on the battlefield. Force you to sack that one to the Psy. I could make you discard a card, but the thing is, you're going to draw a card with the Psy, and then just maybe discard one of those. But I don't think getting this Street Wraith back is good, since my life total is under duress. So I think that's the best option. So destroy Witching Well, you discard a card.
All right, draw 2 cards. 1, 2. Oh my God, these cards are so good. I think we'll go like this. Discard a path.
I don't know why I didn't realize you had 4 mana. That was bad.
Oh yeah.
I just like somehow, like I saw 4 mana. I was like, yo, you can double activate this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a bauble.
Okay.
I will bauble you.
Bubbled.
That is a fine card.
Okay.
Pass, draw off bauble.
All right. Ooh, that's a great one. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of do some stuff. Mox.
Get a Thopter.
Thopter. Astrolabe. Thopter. Draw. EE. Thopter.
This is an outcome.
This is an outcome. All right, return these 5. Draw 5 cards.
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Now we're seeing
4,
this deck hum.
5. Yeah, now we're playing some Magic here. All right, so now we will get 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I got you.
All right, so we'll get 3 Thopters there.
Okay, we're out, so you don't get any more.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
how this works. It's like Monopoly.
We'll do the back of these. All right, so Astrolabe for 1 more. Draw. Now we can funnel mana into here for another Astrolabe. Draw. Now we can funnel mana into here for another Astrolabe. Draw. Now we haven't played a land yet, so we'll go like this. We'll get another one. We will Wishing Well, get another one. Scry 2, bottom. We will get another one. Sacrifice this. And then we're out of stuff to do, but
I think one of these can attack, right?
one of them and the side can attack, so we'll attack for that.
I go to 7.
All right, and then your turn.
I'm going to need a Plague Engineer.
Plague Engineer would still be quite good right here.
That is not a Plague Engineer. But I have a Street Wraith. Let's go to 5.
All right, all right.
Plague Engineer. Okay.
We got a game.
Hold on.
Oh, you don't have enough mana.
I just drew an off card too.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. That's another one.
All right, so we saw the power of this deck take off with just being able to put some artifacts into play. Psy was just a great card at letting me play kind of this value game. We just sack a couple artifacts, sack one like Mox, Amber, and the token to be able to generate a little bit of value, draw some cards, and then eventually hit PO. And even for 3, when you have a Psy out, is more than enough when you're bringing Astrolabes
well, for
back.
5, but...
Well, I said it's more than enough, but 5 is better, Ross.
Yeah. No, it's really...
Can we get a mathematician in here to prove that 5 is indeed better than 3?
Well,
Judges
based
ruling?
on the well-ordering principle of the real numbers.
Okay.
And so it's really important to know like just how quickly the snowball gets out of control. It's runaway snowball
No, it's
down the hill.
Snowlands. That's why they get out of control. Yeah.
You know, you can start from a pretty low base there. You know, you had some lands with 4 or 5 mana, and then you had the Psy and 1 token, and you play 2 more things, you bounce 5 things, suddenly you have this gigantic hand, you've made 17 Thopters, you still probably had 2 or 3 good cards left over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so even if I had found the Plague Engineer, like, I'm sure you could have just kept going.
Yeah, it didn't matter. I mean, I didn't have anything insane, but I had a couple baubles to sack, to redraw. You know, Psy could just sacrifice some of these Astrolabs and stuff, so I was going to keep going, but...
Once this deck gets going, the opponent is just sitting there treading water.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons, like, you know, in the fair matchups, you don't need a card like Nexus, because I'm never going to do anything outside of maybe there are some scenarios where I'll battle rage you out with this deck specifically.
That's true.
But if you make a large enough battlefield, you should still be good, especially with Urza making those gigantic constructs.
Yeah, and exactly that. If that's the one piece I was missing there, is if I did have an Urza in play, I would have just won on that turn, because then I could tap 2 of the Thopters and then just sacrifice them to draw cards, and then whatever artifact I draw brings them back, and then they sack themselves. You know, Nick Miller just keeps killing himself for the greater good.
The decks, it really is impressive to watch it go. And like, that wasn't even, you know, I've played 30 matches or so this week with different variants of this deck. That was pretty tame as far as what this deck can do, and it still looked really impressive.
But I'll be the devil's advocate. I do agree with you. But we see our first 2 games, and we see how bad it looked, realistically. Like, so the deck is... When you win, it's like, oh my god, this is the most powerful deck ever. Why is anybody not playing anything besides this deck? But when you lose, you really see that the deck does have holes and it's not perfect. You know, it's not Hogak where, like, you're just like, oh, you know, I mean, all right, I guess my draw's okay. Oh, I drew a Stitcher Supplier, 32 power. You know, I mean, it's nothing insane like and ban worthy or anything. It has holes, and powerful disruption, powerful removal is with threats pressuring is still gonna get it done most of the time.
That's going to be good against most modern decks. The issue I see with the outcome version relative to, you know, 4-color Urza or you know, some of the Ascendancy lists is having all the 4-drops. You know, having 8 4-mana spells in a deck with a relatively low land count. You only have 18 lands. And you do have, you know, 4 or 7 Moxons. So you have 25 things that make mana, but with a deck with efficient removal and discard, it's pretty easy to turn off at least Mox Amber, if not Mox Opal. And then you start bringing in Collector Oofs and things like that, and you can keep you off mana and make it really difficult to even cast the Urza outcome. But that's what you have to do. If the ball starts rolling, it's over. And you saw in that last game, I drew both Mike Hooligan's commands, which you think is a great card in the matchup, and sometimes it can be. Because it can just be that nail in the coffin where, like, I've disrupted you enough, you seem like you're close to getting things going, and then I go, okay, destroy that, discard one of your last cards.
Whenever you can destroy, like, basically, Colligan's command, the most time I see against these PO decks is destroy you being able to activate Mox Opal and discard a card, and then you spend the next turn just trying to be able to activate Mox Opal as a thing that does something, and then you get to play a threat or whatever, and then if I don't draw a land to curve out into Urza or whatever, I just do nothing, you know, so,
So, you know, I think what ends up being a pretty close matchup, I've been actually pretty good playing this the outcome decks against fair matchups. That said, the Jun Shadow and Shadow decks in general among fair decks are pretty good against decks like this.
And I would feel the Shadow decks are... I feel like Shadow decks are really teetering on fair and unfair because, I mean, at some point you're playing a 1-mana 9/9, you know? I mean, like...
Your threats are just so efficient. Your clock is that much better than traditional Jun or Stoneblade deck, and that is really important. You know, the outcome deck is really resilient. If the game goes long, eventually you'll make enough land drops, draw enough Astrolabes and things, outcome for 2 or 3 just to build, and then start going off. And you've got to close the door. And if you're not able to do that, then, you know, they're going to punish you. And this deck really is able to do so.
Exactly.
You know,
playing outcome, are you more afraid of counter spells or discard spells in general?
I would generally say discard spells. Counter spells, when you have Teferis in the sideboard, it ends up being really good. And the counter spell decks are actually surprisingly bad if you ever just, like, play an early Psy or a Saheeli, especially Psy, because they can't force a negation it, and just make 2 tokens.
Yeah.
Like those tokens actually do a lot of work. The discard decks tend to have more things that play to the battlefield, whereas the counterspell decks have to be pretty loaded on counterspells.
I was just gonna like completely disagree with you and say I think counterspells are worked, but you said the perfect point. Counterspell decks, just in general, what you're trying to say is they're just worse. They're just worse decks, you know? Like, I mean, trying to react in Modern in 2019, no bueno. But I mean, the one thing I will say is to kind of play around counterspells, what you have to end up doing is like the PO at end step and then get it countered and then make sure you have a follow-up for next turn that really matters. And then you can kind of get under it. But I do find it a little harder to play against counterspells with this deck because discard spells, you know what you're going to play. They can't discard the top of the deck.
Oh,
so.
it's certainly easier to play against. Because like everything they're doing it proactively.
Yeah.
But I just tearing your hand apart, taking the resources away from you. You know, the counterspell decks really have to focus their counterspells on your key threats.
Exactly.
And if one of them resolves, like the game ends.
Exactly. And I mean, like you said with Teferi and stuff, so if you're sitting across from Shaheen Surani, I mean, sure, he might have all the counterspells in the world, but eventually you stick a Teferi or you make some you make 2 Thopters and he's just like, oh, well, that's it, boys. Game.
These decks are also now incorporating Mystical Dispute from Throne of Eldraine in the sideboard. Just 1 mana, counter your counterspell, unless you pay 3, which is usually just our counter.
Pretty spicy.
So that's a really nice one. That can also, like, you know, counter your Jaces or Teferis or what have you out of that deck, as opposed to like Dispel, which was a little bit more narrow.
Yeah.
So Mystical Dispute seems to be really good. I think it's easier to counterplay against those decks.
Yeah.
The discard, you just can't do a whole lot. When they have more options. They can take your threats and just leave you with a bunch of mana, or they can take your mana and, like in game 1, and leave you with 2 lands in play and some 4-drops in your hand.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter that you've drawn Urza and outcome, you can't cast them.
Exactly. Okay, well that's gonna do it for our first round here. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break. Good for you. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break, and then we have the deck that got me back into competitive Magic here not too long ago. Pro Tour Kaladesh. Collected Company was the Magic card. Bant Collected Company got me back on the Pro Tour and got me, you know, got the fire back, and I get to play Bant Company again. We got a few new different tools compared to standard Bant Company, compared to the modern Bant Company. It should be exciting. What do you got coming up next round?
I'm going to be playing Azoria Stoneblade. It's a nice little nice matchup there where you can like fleece me with the Collected Company. I got a hold of counter spells, so should be a fun one. Don't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere.